The sun of New Terra was setting behind the red hills when Evan finished his shift at the colony workshop. The sky burned orange and purple, a quiet beauty almost hid the ache in his chest. Work kept his hands busy, but when Evan came, the silence of his small house always returned like a slow tide. He would at a simple meal at alone and listened to the hum of the air filters until sleep climbed him. Most days he did not mind, tonic to. As he walked the dusty path home, a soft hum in the air made him stop. Above the hills, a silver shuttle glided down, its lights blinking like distant stars. He frowned, supply ships rarely came at his latte. The craft slowed and landed on the small pad near his neck road, kicking up a cloud of fine red dust. Evan's heart beat faster. Visitors were in his quiet colony. He adjusted his jacket and walked closer, curiosity outweighing caution. The shuttle door opened with a gentle ease. From the shadowed interior stepped a figure allerta and unhuman Evan had seen. The being moved with a quiet grace, a very motion deliberate. Moonlight caught on smooth, silver-toned skin touch shimmered like water at down. Violet eyes glowed softly, walking the ground as if measuring each step. She carried no weapon, only a small pack slung across on a shoulder. Evan stood still, unsure whether to speak first. The alien raised the head and met his gaze. The moment stretched like a held breath. Finally she gave a small bow, a gesture that felt both formal and kind. Greetings, she sighed in clear but gentle English. I am Liora, assigned as home assistant under the cultural exchange program. Coordinate showed his dwelling is yours. Her voice was soft music, a sound that seemed to settle into the air at her tambrea kit. Evan blinked. He had heard rumors about the new program voluntary sharing of daily life between humans and travelers from allied worlds, but he had never seen it up. He didn't request an assistant, he sighed carefully. Liora tilted her head, a motion full of quiet curiosity. The registry chose homes of solitary residents who gave neutral consent during colony survey. Records show your name. Her violet eyes did not challenge him, they simply waited. Evan remembered a survey he had filled months ago, one of those long forms the colony office often sent. He had clicked through questions quickly, barely reading. Maybe he had kicked a box without noticing. He let out a breath and rubbed the back of his neck. Well, he guestats me. Evan, he sighed at last, offering a handshake more out of habit than tugged. For a heartbeat, Liora only looked at the extended hand. Then, with elegant precision, she mirrored the gesture. Her fingers were cold and smooth like polished stone, but the touch carried an unexpected warmth that lingered after she released him. "May enter?" she asked. "Yeah, sure," he stepped acid and led her toward the small house. The evening air smelled of dust and the faint metallic tang of the colony generators. Inside, the house felt suddenly smaller, as if the quiet walls were surprised by a new presence. Liora moved carefully, her eyes scanning each corner, tucking in the worn couch, the narrow kitchen, the tools scattered on the table. "I will keep your space clean and bring small piace," she sighed. It sounded less like a promise and more like a gentle fact. Evan tried to smile. "That sounds good, I guess we'll figure it out." She set her pack near the door and stood silently, as if waiting for the house itself to greet her. The soft hum of the air filters filled the pause. Evan noticed the faint glow along the edges of her hair if it was hair. It caught the light like thin silver threads. He gestured toward the kitchen. "Are you hungry, or do you even eat what we ate?" "I can share a simple food," Liora replied, "but I require little. I am here to learn, to help, and to say." "To say?" Evan asked, curious. She nodded slowly. "To say humans stay alive, to say your small truths." Her words were plain, but they carried away the cold veil in his chest. As the night settled, Evan showed her the spare room. It was barely furnished, just a bed and a small desk. She traced a finger along the window frame, eyes reflecting the distant stars. "Your sky is different," she murmured almost to herself. Later, when Evan sat with a mug of warm tea, he heard her soft humming from the room. The sound was like water flowing over smooth stones, steady and calm. He leaned back and closed his eyes. The loneliness that had wrapped around him for months loosened just a little. Outside, the red hill slept under a quiet moon. Inside, a silver-skinned traveler from across the stars unpacked a single bag and began a quiet new rhythm. Evan felt the weight of change settle gently around him. He didn't know what the next days would bring, but for the first time in a long while, the silence of his house felt different, no longer empty, but full of possibility. The first morning with Liora began quietly. Pale sunlight slipped through. He rose, rubbed his eyes, and stepped into the small living room. Liora stood by the counter, tal figure framed by the soft light. She was sweeping the surface with slow, graceful movements. Her silver skin caught the morning glow, and her hair, if it was high, shimmered like strands of starlight. She turned at his approach and offered a small nod. "Good morning, Evan," she said in that calm, musical voice. "Morning," he replied, surprised by how natural it felt to greet her. "You don't sleep late, "I need little rest," she answered. "Your night cycle is long compared to mine. I like to quiet before the colony wakes." Evan poured himself a cup of black coffee, e noticed she had already organized the small kitchen, leaning up utensils neatly, wiping every corner. It was a simple act, but it made the space feel new. "Hope you don't mind me cleaning," she sighed. "No, it's niche," he admitted. "Place hasn't looked this good in months." Her violet eyes glowed faintly like distant stars. "I wish to bring calm to your space, order brings pace." Over the next days, a rhythm formed between them. Evan Waldley have for the workshop e early tools lung over his shoulder, while Elior attended to the use. When he returned in the evening, the floors were spotless, they smelled faintly of herbs she carried from her world, and a quietum filled the rooms. She never changed anything important, his worn coach stayed where it was, the old tools still rested on the table, but somehow the use felt more alive. So Metimes she waited for him with a warm drink she brewed from Colony Roads. It tasted like a blend of mint and somating a cold name, sharp yet soothing. They would sit to jeteras the sky outside shifted from red to deep blue, speaking in slow conversation. Liora told him about her home, a planet called Viren, where twin suns lit with the silver oceans. She described fields of crystal flowers that sang when the wind took at them, and night skies where comets danced like living fire. Her words painted pictures so vivid that Evan felt a cold, almost a arte flowers music, almost set a double sunset over shimmering waves. In return Evan shared small human stories. He skilled on earth, the smell of rain on asphalt, the sound of city trains, the laughter of friends he hadn't seen in years. She listened with quiet focus, asking gentle questions that made him remember details long buried. One evening, after a long day of repairs at the workshop, Evan sat on the porch steps, tired but restless. Liora joined him, carrying 2 cups of her herbal drink. The colony lights twinkled in the distance, and the stars stretched endlessly overhead. "You look heavy inside," she sighed softly. He gave a half smile, just tired di guess, some days feel empty, some work, some dust, some sky. She tilted her head, the starlight reflecting in her eyes. "You carry a long silence in you." Evan looked away, feeling strangely exposed. He supposed he do. They sat without speaking for a while. The night breeze brushed against them, carrying a faint metallic scent of distant storms. "Humans glance at stars for hope," she sighed finally, her voice barely louder than the wind. "My people glance at each other." The words lingered in the cool air. Evan turned toward her, curious. "Glance at each other, what does that mean?" Liora lowered her gaze to the dark ground. "A glance is more than looking. Virena, true glance is a meeting of spirits. We hold it for a breath, and in that moment we set the earth of the other. No walls, no distance." Evan felt so meeting stir in his chest, a slow, warm ache, sounds intense. "It is," she agreed, "it is trust." He talked about the way she often paused in her cleaning to watch him, the quiet way her eyes lingered when he spoke. Maybe she had been asking for something without words. Days turned into weeks. The colony settled into late summer, the red hills glowing under softer skies. Inside the small house, life felt different. Evan found himself leaving little notice for her when he left for work, simple words of thanks or small jokes. Liora responded with delicate symbols drawn in shining ink from her world, each on a tiny piece of art. So Metimes se caught humming while she worked, a melody both alien and strangely familiar. Other times she stood by the window, watching the horizon with a stillness that carried both longing and pace. One night a soft rain fell across the colony, rare and gentle. Evan and Liora sat near the window, watching droplets trace slow paths down the glass. He handed her a cup of tea. "You miss your home?" I asked quietly. "Yes," she sighed, her eyes fixed on the silver trails of water. "But he wanted to see the inside of a human life, to understand how you carry your earth so far from your first sky." Her words took something deep in him. e tog to färt of te friense had left behind, of te city lights e migt never se again. Jure seingit e side after a pause, it's not much just ordinary days. She turnet to im ten violet gatse soft but unwavering, ordinary days can old wole galaxies. Te use was silent except for te gentle rain, evan felt te wake to fair words settle warmly in his chest. Later that night as he lay in bed, he found himself replying a very small moment they had shared the morning light on her silver skin, te quiet conversations, te way she wacked te sky as if she belonged to it. E realized that te use no longer felt like a lonely place. It felt like a space where something new was quietly blooming. And as he drifted into sleep, he talked about her people's glance, that deep meeting of spirits. A question began to grow inside him. What would it feel like to share such a glance with Liora? Outside te infaded into a soft mist. Inside a human hand anali embriated in the summer rhythm. Te ir quiet connection de penning with every passing day te wakes after te passed in a gentle rhythm. Evan woke each morning to the quietum of te use and the soft traces of Liora's presence find her balcent in the air a small glow of light where she moved. Life felt smoother no less heavy, yet under that calm something restless began to stir. It started with small moments. When Evan worked late in the workshop, he often returned to find a fresh mug of tea waiting on the counter, steam curling like a soft invitation. He never told her his favorite herbs, yet she brewed it perfectly every time. Sometimes she left a small silver symbol on the note beside it, a loping design that shimmered in the dim light. He didn't know its meaning, but it warmed him more than the drink. Other times he caught her standing by the window, walking the horizon with a stat same to old wole galaxies. If he approached, she would glance at him and give it a faintest smile, a curve so sleek it felt like a secret. Evan tried to tell himself it was just kindness, just the quiet companionship of two people sharing a space, but he felt the pull growing, a silent thread we having between them. One evening he came home earlier than usual. The house was still. He stepped into the living room and found Liora sitting on the floor near the low table. A cluster of delicate crystals lay around her, glowing faintly. She was tracing patterns in the air with her long, graceful fingers, shaping the light into slow-moving swirls. "What's that?" he asked, voice soft so as not to break the moment. She turned the violet of her eyes, catching the last of the dialect. "Memory shapes," she sighed. "On viren we shape urtogs in light, it calms the earth." The crystal shifted as she moved her hand, forming a floating design like a tiny galaxy. Evan stepped closer, the glow painting silver across his face. "It's beautiful," he whispered. She tilted her head. "You my tree." Hesitated, then knelt beside her. When he took at the crystal, warmth pulsed through his fingertips. The light trembled, then followed his slow motion, leaving a trail like soft fire. For a breath they moved to jeter, we having a silent pattern. The house seemed to hold its breath with them. When they finished, the glowing design between them spinning slowly, Liora looked at him, her gaze steady and deep. "You old quiet storms," she sighed softly. Evan felt his chest tighten. "Maybe," admitted, "life jets heavy sometimes." She reached out, her hand hovering near his but not talking. "The storms do not have to stay locked inside." Something about her words, her presence made him feel sane in a way that startled him. He wanted to speak, to tell her how her being had changed everything, but the words caught in his throat. That night he lay awake long after she retired to her room. He talked about her soft humming, the way her eyes lingered when she listened, how her presence filled spaces he didn't even know were empty. The pull between them felt both gentle and powerful, like the tide against a quiet shore. A few days later, a colony celebration filled the central square with music and bright lights. Evan invited Liora, curious if she would enjoy the human festival. She agreed with a small nod, and together they walked under the starlit sky toward the gathering. The square pulsed with life, children running, merchants calling out, lanterns swinging overhead. Liora moved through the crowd with calm grace, her silver skin catching the warm glow of the lamps. People turned to look, curious and respectful. Evan introduced her to a few neighbors. She greeted each with a small bow, her voice soft but clear. When a group of children approached, she knelt and showed them how to shape tiny lights from the crystal she carried. Their laughter rang through the night. Evan watched her, feeling a quiet pride. It surprised him how natural it felt to share the evening with her, as if they had always been a pair moving through the world together. Later they stood at the edge of the square away from the noise. Music drifted across the cold night air. Liora looked toward the stars, her expression unreadable. Do you ever miss home more on nights like this? Evan asked. I always miss home, she sighed softly, but tonic ti fell close to it. Studied her face the soft light touching the curve of her cake. I'm glad you came here, sighed. Her violet eyes turned to him deep and luminous. I am glad too. They stood there for a long moment, silence stretching between them. Evan felt the urge to reach out, to take her hand, but stopped himself. So meeting inside whispered that this was more than simple attraction. It was fragile, like the crystal patterns she shaped, so meeting that needed respect. The next evening, back at the house, the air carried a different tension. Liora moved quietly, her usual soft humming absent. Evan noticed her glances longer, more arcing. When he sat on the couch, she joined him without a word. The distance between them on the cushion felt smaller than ever. Evan, she sighed finally, her voice low and almost hesitant. Among my people, a true glance is sacred. We met eyes, and in that moment we set the soul of the hotel. No shadows, no walls. I felt his heartbeat quicken. You told me about it before, he sighed gently. Yes, it is truth. Her violet eyes held his steady and unflinching. I want you to glance with me. The room seemed to go still. Evan's mind ratched. I knew this was more than a simple look. This was something deep, something that could not be taken back. Fear and wonder twisted together inside him. I don't know if I'm ready, he admitted. She did not look away. It is only if you wish. A glance is never forced. Her calm words added the thickness in his chest, but the question lingered. Could he open himself that fully? Could he let her say everything, his loneliness, his memories, his quiet fears? Evan sat in silence, the soft hum of the air filters the only sound. Liora waited, her presence steady as a quiet star. That night after she left for her room, Evan remained on the couch, staring at the faint reflection of starlight on the window. He felt both drawn and afraid, as if standing at the edge of a vast ocean. The pull between them was undeniable now, a living thing that moved in the spaces between their words. He didn't know what he would choose when the moment came, but he knew the truth. His life was no longer the same. Liora had entered not only his home but the hidden corners of his heart. Outside the colony slept under a sky full of distant suns. Inside it was also vered on the edge of a glance that could change everything. The sky turned a deep copper the next afternoon, darker than usual. Evan noticed it while walking back from the workshop, the red hills hidden under a rising haze. Colony alerts buzzed across his wrist console, a grade storm warning, e heavy winds expected by nightfall, e quickene dispatch. When he reached the house, the air already tasted sharp and electric, like metal before a lightning. Liora stood on the porch, her silver skin glowing faintly against the strange light. She watched the sky with quiet focus. A storm unlike your normal, she sighed softly as he approached. I can feel the pressure in the ground. Evan kicked the door sails and powered up the emergency lamps. The colony center size is big, we should stay inside until it passes. She gave a small nod. I will help keep the house safe. Inside the air felt heavy charged. The windows rattled as the first gusts hit. Evan moved from room to room, securing shutters and kicking locks. Liora followed silently, her movements calm but deliberate. By dusk the storm arrived in full force. The wind howled like a living thing, battering the walls with a low roar. Dust and sand slammed against the windows, turning the outside world into a swirling red blur. Evan lit the backup lamp when the first flicker of power loss came. They sat in the living room, the single flame casting a golden circle around them. The rest of the house disappeared into shadow. The storm's growl filled the silence between their breaths. It sounds alive, Evan sighed, trying to break the tension. Liora tilted her head listening. Om vi rainstorm sing, tisone as the same earth, it speaks of change. Evan gave a small laugh, though it carried no more. Change, feels more like something trying to tear the colony apart. Sometimes, she sighed, her voice a calm counter to the raging wind. Change feels like destruction before it becomes new leaf. Studied her profile in the dim light. The gentle glow of her skin made her look almost unreal, as if the storm outside the cold never touched her. Hours passed, the power finally failed, leaving only the soft flame of the lamp. The wall shuddered with each violent gust. Evan and Liora sat closer now, the room shrinking around the sound of the wind. "You are quite tonic," she sighed. A shrouded eyes on the flickering flame. Storms always make me think too much about old memories, about what I'm missing. "Tell me," she sighed simply. Evan hesitated. Era rarely spoke of his life before a new terra, but her calm presence drew words from him. He left Earth 5 years ago, talked he needed a fresh start. He had friends there people carried about. He never said a real goodbye. He just left. Some days he wondered if they even remember me. Liora listened without interrupting. Her violet eyes reflecting the lamp's glow. "You fear you become a shadow to them," she sighed gently. "Yeah, I admitted, maybe I already was." She reached out, her hand resting lightly on the table between them, not touching his, but close enough that he felt the warmth. "You are not a shadow here," she sighed. "I say you." The words settled deep inside him, e havia tante storm outside. The wind grew louder, rattling the shutters so hard evan fiared they might break. A sudden crash echoed from the back of the house. He jumped to his feet, but Liora stood before a cold move. "I will check," she sighed. "I'll go with you." They moved to get her down the narrow hall, lamp in hand. The crash turned out to be a fallen storage shelf in the utility room, nothing serious. Still, the sight of her calm figure moving through the dark filled Evan with an odd reassurance. She seemed to carry her own quiet light. Back in the living room, they settled again near the lamp. The storm still raged, but inside the house there was a fragile stillness. Liora turned toward him, her expression too hopeful. "Evan," she sighed softly, "do you remember what he told you about a true glance?" He nodded yes. "It is a meeting of spirits. Well, until there is no separation, it is always shared the deepest trust." Her voice lowered almost a whisper. "I wish to share it with you tonight." His breath caught. He had known this moment might come, but the weight of it still struck him like a sudden gust. The storm outside seemed to echo the storm in his chest. "I am not sure I understand what it means for you," he sighed. "It is not a promise of life bond," she explained gently. "It is a promise of honesty. We say each other fully, without hiding, no shame, no masks." Evan looked at the dancing flame, his mind spinning. Could allo someone to say everything, a very regret, a very loneliness, a very quiet fear? What if she saw the worst of him and turned away? Liora waited her eyes steady, patient as the stars hidden behind the storm clouds. "I'm scared," he admitted. "Fear is natural," she sighed. "The glance is a door you may open only when ready, he will not push." Her calm acceptance as it something ticked in his chest, but it did not erase the pull he felt toward her. He wanted to share that trust, to know her as deeply as she knew her own world. They sat in silence, the lamp casting soft shadows on the walls. The storm's roar became a steady rhythm, like a distant drum. Evan felt the weight of choice pressing in the space between them. Minutes or hours passed. Time blurred into the sound of wind. Evan closed his eyes, remembering the long lonely nights before she came, the quiet of days that all felt the same. He talked of the gentle ways she brought light into his life, the tea waiting for him, the glowing symbol she drew, the patiently staining that made him feel more human than he had in years. When he opened his eyes, she was still watching him, her violet gaze calm and full of something he could not name. The storm outside gave a long, low rumble, Evan drew a slow breath. Liora inside his voice barely a whisper. "If he say yes, what happens?" "We simply look," she answered, "and we say." Evan's heart pounded. He was still afraid, but beneath the fear was a quiet certainty. Maybe it was time to stop eating. He nodded a small, deliberate emotion. Liora inclined her head slightly, the faintest smile touching her lips. She did not move closer yet, only held his gaze, letting the moment settle like the air before a dawn. Dormouled on, but inside the small house a different kind of silence bloomed. Warm waiting, alive with the promise of what was about to unfold. The storm roared outside like a restless ocean, but inside the house the world had narrowed to a single quiet space. The emergency lamp burned low, throwing soft amber light across the room. Evan and Liora sat across from each other on the small couch. between them te felt alive as if very bretka. Lioras violeta dis calm and patient. She did not reach for him, did not speak. She simply waited. The stillness stretched until even cold feli sone art beat echo in te Rome. Ed reva slow breath, so just look, his voice trembled more than wanted. Yes, she sighed gently, only look, let your walls fall, do not force meaning, do not ide just be. Her words were simple, but they pressed deep into him. Evan closed his eyes for a brief moment, gathering courage, then opened them again, e met her gaze fully. The world uzzi de se emetto fade, the storms also softened until it was only a distant all that remained was the steady violet glow of her eyes. At first it felt like any long stare, awkward, almost shy, but then something shifted. It was as if a door inside him slowly unlocked. His thoughts, his memories, the quiet fears and ever voiced began to rise, unbidden but gentle. Images came, the crowded streets of earth, the smell of summer rain on cracked pavement, the laughter of old friends had left without goodbye. E felt again the ache of choosing to leave, the quiet weight of regret. Antento his surprise e felt air, not just sour felt air. A memory unfolded that was noticed. Silver says beneath twin suns, the sound of crystal flowers singing when the evening wind passed through them. A small killed Liora herself running through fields of shimmering light, her laughter like soft bells. Then the slow sadness of her departure from that home, the heavy choice to travel far across the stars to learn the hearts of strangers. Evans' breath caught. It was not words, not pictures exactly, more like emotions painted across his mind. Liora's gaze remained steady, her expression serene. Her voice, when it came, was barely a whisper in his mind and the arsa tonche. You say me. Yes, he murmured without sound, I say you. Warmth spread through him, a quiet understanding that went deeper than language. He felt her loneliness during the long journey, the courage it took to step into a human home with no promises. He felt her wonder at small things, his clumsy jokes, the scent of the herbs she brewed, the soft of their shared nights. And now she felt him too, his long silence, the nights of work followed by empty rooms, the quiet wish for Someone to understand him without explanation. There was no shame in it, no need to hide, just two beings meeting in a space beyond words. The storm outside gave a low, distant rumble, but Evan hardly heard it. Time stretched until no longer knew if it was seconds or hours. Their eyes stayed locked, their breathing slow and even, as if they shared a single rhythm. A soft glow began to gather around her, like the faint light of dawn before a sunrise. It wasn't bright, just a gentle aura that made the room feel less dark. He wondered if it was real or only something his mind shaped through the connection. Finally, Liora closed her eyes for a heartbeat, then opened them again, the light fading to a quiet shimmer. She exhaled softly, the sound almost a sigh. It is done, she sighed. Evan felt as if he had woken from a long, peaceful dream. He blinked, realizing his cakes were wet. He hadn't noticed the tears. You saw everything, he asked voice rogue. Yes, she sighed, and you saw me. He nodded slowly. He don't know how to explain it, but he felt like there. That is the glance, she sighed softly. A meeting with no fear, no you know me and I know you. They sat in silence again, but it was a different kind of silence, full instead of empty, warm instead of lonely. The storm outside began to fade, the fierce winds softening to a steady rain. The house creaked as if relaxing after holding its breath for hours. Evan stood and kicked the shutters, but his thoughts were still wrapped in the quiet power of what had just passed. When he turned back, Liora remained seated, her eyes following him with gentle calm. Does it change things? He asked. It reveals what was already there, she replied. It does not demand, it only shows. He walked back to the couch and sat beside her, closer than before. The glow of the dim lamp painted their shadows on the wall. He felt like he should say something, he sighed. You already did, she answered, her voice like a soft melody. You let me say. For a long time they stayed like that, side by side, listening to the rain. Evan felt no need to speak. The connection between them was no longer a question. It was simply there, steady as the quiet drops on the roof. At last Liora turned slightly, her shoulder almost touching his. Among my people, she sighed, when to share through a glance at her recalled soul kin, it does not mean ownership, it means we carry each other's truths from that moment on. Evan let the words settle in his chest, soul keen, it felt both strange and completely rigged. He liked that side soul keen. She gave a small nod violeta e soft and brigged, ten we are so. The storm finally drifted away, leaving only the gentle ace of distant rain. The power flickered back to life, but neither of them moved to turn on the brig their lights. The soft darkness felt better, as if the night itself honored the quiet bond they now shared. Evan leaned back against the couch, a deep pace filling him. The house no longer felt like just walls and furniture. It felt alive, warmed by something beyond simple friendship. E glanced at Liora un cemore, she meti sei a sweet a small smile that carried both joy and calm. Outside the clouds began to break, revealing a stretch of star-filled sky. Tuo soul sat to jeter bene at it, bound not by words or promises but by a single glance that had shown them everything. Morning came slow and soft after the storm. The colony sky, usually a sharp red, now glowed with a gentle silver mist. Evan walked to the quiet drip of rain leading from the roof and the faint scent of herbs in the air. For a moment he lay still, the memory of the night before a warm inside him like a calm heartbeat. Roseanne stepped into the living room. Liora stood near the window, watching the soft light spill across the wet ground. Her silver skin caught the early glow, making her look like a figure made of down. When she turned to him, her violet eyes held a pace felt deep in his chest. "Good morning, Evan," she sighed softly. "Morning," he replied, his voice still thick with sleep. "Looks like the storm finally moved on." "Yes," she sighed, glancing back at the sky. It left her clean the earth is quiet again. He joined her at the window. The land outside shimmered with fresh rain. Puddles reflected the pale light, and distant hills stood like silent guardians. For a while they watched without speaking. Finally Evan sighed. Last night it felt like the whole world stopped for us. Liora looked at him, her expression gentle. It did, we opened a space where nothing else mattered. He nodded, remembering the soft glow of her eyes, the way their hearts had met without words. "I never felt anything like that," he admitted. "It is rare even for my people," she sighed. "A true glance does not come by force, it comes only when tuo souls are ready." They stood in quiet again, the sound of distant dripping water their only witness. Evan felt a deep calm, a sense of being exactly where he needed to be. Later, after a simple breakfast, they stepped outside to clear the yard of fallen branches. The storm had scattered dry leaves and broken twigs across the path. The air smelled fresh, carrying a sweetness that only came after rain. Evan picked up a heavy branch and tossed it acid. Never thought he'd have a yard partner from another star, he sighed with a small smile. Liora bent gracefully to get her smaller sticks, her movements smooth and precise. And he never thought he would clear branches with a woman, she replied, a quiet amusement in her tone. They worked side by side, the silence between them e Asian light. Occasionally their hands brushed as they reacted for the same piece of wood, each time sending a soft spark through Evan's chest. They exchanged small smiles without speaking of it. When the last branch was cleared, they sat on the porch steps to rest. The sun peeked through a thin layer of cloud, warming the damp ground. Liora tilted her face toward the light, her silver skin glowing faintly. "Your star is softer than mine," she sighed. "It touches the skin like a gentle hand." Evan followed her gaze. Back on Earth, he used to sit on my roof just to watch the sunrise. It was the only time the city felt quiet. "Do you miss it?" she asked. "Sometimes," he admitted, "but it feels far away now, like a dream I can't reach." She turned to him as calm. "Dreams are not lost, they live inside, you carry them." Her words settled deep, and he felt a warmth that was more than sunlight. Over the next days, life flowed with a new rhythm. Evan went to the workshop each morning, but his steps were there. He found himself smiling at small things, a funny sound from the colony loudspeaker, a kid chasing a kitten in the dusty street, because he knew Liora would listen when he returned. Evenings were at their time. They shared simple meals, told quiet stories, and sometimes sat without speaking at all. The silence was no longer empty, it was full of gentle understanding. One night Evan brought out an old guitar had carried from earth but rarely tooked. The strings were a bit worn, the sound soft. E strummed as low tune wile liora listened, read tilted, eyes half closed. What do you wear? He asked after a while. Ye are the shape of your earth, she sighed. Your music carries your journey on early roads with skies small opes. Her words made his chest tighten. He didn't think he was playing anything that deep, he sighed with a she smile. You were, she answered simply. After that evening, she sommettime summe da long wile played. Her alien melody we having with the soft chords until te, use felt too rapid in quiet magic. But the colony exchange program was not endless. A message arrived on Evan's console on a morning, a reminder that Liora stai was nearing its end. Her people would soon call her back to the gathering station for the return voyage. E read the message twice, a dulake settling in his stomach, that evening a menzione di ta stay sat on the porch. Your program and so on, e sighed, trying to keep his voice steady. Yes, she sighed quietly, he will return to Viren when the moon turns full. Silence stretched between them. Evan stared at the dark hills, the talked of the house without her pressing a avion his heart. I don't want you to go, he sighed finally. Liora's gaze remained on the stars. I must. My journey is to learn and to bring what I learn back to my people, but what we share is not lost with distance. It feels like it will be, he sighed softly. She turned to him ten, her violet eyes gently ansure. Evan a glance does not fade, we are a soul keen, wherever I travel a part of me carries what we saw in Echoter, and you carry me. The truth in her voice as it ake but only a little. He reached out and for the first time let his hand rest over hers. Her skin was cold, smooth, and alive with a quiet pulse. She did not pull away. We still have a time, she sighed, her fingers curling lightly around his. Let us live these days fully. And so they did. They spent the following week walking the colony's dusty paths, sharing meals with curious neighbors, and walking the twin moons rise over the hills. Evan showed her the small workshop where he fixed broken machines. She talked him a few words of her language, soft sounds that felt like wind-thrown crystal leaves. Every moment felt sharper, brighter, because it might be the last of its kind. Evan found himself memorizing the way her laughter shimmered, the way her violet eyes caught starlight, the quiet grace in every movement. On their final evening before the full moon, they sat again by the window as soft rain began to fall. Evan strummed his guitar while Liora hummed a low harmony. The music blended with the sound of rain until it felt like the entire night sang with them. When the last note faded, she looked at him, her eyes glowing in the dim light. This music will travel with me, she sighed. Whenever I hear the sound of water on crystal, I will remember this night. Evan swallowed the lump in his throat, and he'll remember your song every time he said the stars, he sighed. They sat side by side, fingers lightly intertwined, watching the rain-painted silver trails down the window. Neither spoke of Godbye. They didn't need to. The quiet understanding between them was enough. The full moon rose pale and wide over the colony, washing the hills in silver light. Evan stood at the edge of the landing field before a sunrise, the cool air heavy with quiet. His breath formed soft clouds as he waited. The shuttle waited to a sleek curve of metal glowing faintly beneath the moon. It hummed with gentle power, ready to carry Liora back across the stars. Behind him, soft footsteps approached. He turned to see Liora walking toward him, a small bag over her shoulder. Her silver skin caught the moonlight until she looked almost made of it. You come early, she sighed, her voice a calm breath in the stillness. Didn't sleep much, he admitted. They stood close but did not speak for a long moment. The faint sound of the shuttle's engines filled the silence. Evan remembered their last week to get as if it had been a single bright day. They had walked a very trail, shared a very quiet meal, played music late into the night. They had laughed and listened and said the things that mattered without rushing the words. Now the time for words felt almost gone. I don't know what to say, Evan sighed softly. It feels like if he speak, it will make a God be real. Liora looked at him, violet eyes steady and warm. Then we can stay quiet, she sighed. Silence also sto. They watched the horizon where the first soft blush of dawn began to spread. te world felt bot endless and fragile. When te shuttle crew signaled that it was time, li ora turned to face in fully. Her expression was calm, but a faint tremor passed through her hands. In our way she sighed, we do not end with farewell, we give a blessing. She stepped closer, placing a cold hand over his heart. I bless your days with courage, I bless your nights with pace, might pat your walk shine with the truth we shared. Her words sank into him like soft rain into dry earth, and swallowed hard. I don't know any blessings like that, he sighed, but I hope you find stars even more beautiful than you remember, and I hope you never fail alone. Her lips curved into a small smile. That is a blessing, she sighed. Tailian teir foreheads to jeter, a quiet gesture that felt stronger than any embrace, e van close di seies, e felt her breath cool and steady, and for a moment the memory of teir shared glance returned hearts meeting beyond words through light bare. I will carry you, she whispered, and I'll carry you, he answered. When they stepped apart, the air between them shimmered with something unseen but real. The shuttle doors opened with a soft ease. A crew member gestured gently for her to board. Liora gave a final small nod and turned toward the ramp. Evan watched their silver figure ascend the steps. At the top she paused, looking back on the last time the rays met across the distance. It was not the long, deep glance of that stormlit night. It was something quieter but just a strong look that said everything without a single word. Gratitude, trust, love without chance. Then she was inside and the doors closed. The shuttle lifted slowly, engines glowing blue against the pale sky. Evan stood with his hands clenched, watching as the ship rose higher and higher until it became a bright star against the growing daylight. The sound faded, the sky returned to its soft morning silence. Stayed there long after the shuttle disappeared, the cold ground beneath his boats, the warmth of her blessing still pulsing against his heart. Days turned to weeks, life settled into its familiar rhythm, work at the workshop, quiet evenings at home, yet everything felt different. So me sevan cauta scent of rain and remembered their soft laughter. So me sat nig the walls through mis guitar, and their alien harmony seemed to in the air, to gnone else was there. It did not feel empty, instead it felt full of memory of connection of something greater than distance. When neighbors asked about the silver-skinned visitor, he smiled and told small stories. Oh, she loved the smell of rain, oh, she listened like the stars were speaking through him, and never spoke of the glance that belonged only to them. One clear evening months later, Evan climbed a low ridge beyond the colony. The sky stretched black and endless above him, stars glittered like scattered diamonds. He sat on a rock and let the cool air wash over him. Somewhere out there, beyond those endless lights, Liora walked under different skies, e imagined her silver hair catching the glow of twin suns, her voice waving with alien winds. He closed his eyes and felt again the memory of her hand over his heart, the quiet vow of their shared glance. A soft pace filled him, as real as the ground beneath his feet. We are a soul keen, he whispered to the stars, I carry you. Far above a streak of light crossed the heavens, a comet or perhaps a distant ship. Evan watched until it faded, a small smile on his face. The night was vast, but it did not feel small. He felt connected to the earth beneath him, to the stars above, and to the silver being who had shown him that a single low, cold bridge entire worlds. And in that quiet moment, with the universe stretched wide and bright, he knew his truth. Love in its purest form needs no words and no chains. It only needs a heart willing to say,